My next Patreon question is from Andrew, who wants me to compare two of the most popular film trilogies of all time. Which trilogy is better, the Godfather trilogy or the original Star Wars trilogy? You might be sitting there wondering what a gangster epic and a space saga have in common, and admittedly, not much. However, both began in the 1970s, had two widely acclaimed films, and then a third entry that is often seen as the weakest of the three. Both The Godfather Part 2 and The Empire Strikes Back often top lists of the best sequels of all time too. George Lucas also got his film career started thanks to the guidance and support of Francis Ford Coppola. When it comes to choosing which I think is the better trilogy, it really comes down to which third film I prefer. As such, I'm going to go with the original Star Wars trilogy. The first Star Wars film is such a wonderful use of the classic hero's journey. The story is arguably the most simple of the movies, but that's partly why it's my favorite. There's a pureness to it I admire, as George Lucas revels in recreating the sci-fi B-movie serials of his youth, along with fairy tales and Japanese cinema. The Empire Strikes Back managed to bring audiences back to that world in a way that brought new surprises and further developed the characters. Yoda made for a fantastic addition, as did Lando Calrissian and the revelations revealed here. Return of the Jedi has its flaws, but I still greatly enjoy it. The final confrontation with Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and the Emperor is incredibly exciting and so well choreographed and directed. I do think we spend a little too much time on Tatooine at the beginning, and I'm definitely not a fan of that musical number in Jabba the Hutt's palace. I'm mixed on the Ewoks, although I do like the David versus Goliath theme they represent. Those first three Star Wars do excel in special effects, production design, sound design, action sequences, and of course the classic music by John Williams. I'm also emotionally invested in the journey taken by Luke, Leia, and Han. And yet, at the end of the day, I also recognize these are mostly meant to be fun space movies for children, just as George Lucas intended, and they succeed at that goal. With the Godfather trilogy, Coppola did a great job of exploring the ideologies of the Corleone family and their operation. Behind the bloodshed and the violence, they are about family. The first Godfather masterfully shows Michael's arc as he changes from someone rejecting the gangster lifestyle to completely embracing it. Marlon Brando understandably got most of the attention for his role as Vito Corleone in that film, but I personally think it belongs to Al Pacino. It's such a well-paced and structured film as we get to know each individual and their role in the story. Every single character feels important, and that makes the more shocking scenes even more powerful. With The Godfather Part 2, Coppola and Mario Puzo took the interesting approach of intersecting the lives of a young Vito trying to grow his stature and family in America, and a Michael who is completely given in to evil as he manipulates events to his will and does some truly unthinkable actions. It's an engrossing saga that shows a man losing all sense of morality. The Godfather Part 3 is fine. It just doesn't have quite the spark of the first two. Making a third film 16 years later would obviously bring outsized expectations, and Coppola himself wanted Part 3 to be viewed more as an epilogue, hence the original title, The Death of Michael Corleone. I think Michael's arc is the strongest element, as we see him grappling with guilt all those years later, and tries his hardest to make the Corleone clan legitimate. But, as he famously says, just when he thought he was out, they pull him back in. The third act, set primarily at an opera house, is a particularly masterful piece of direction on Coppola's part, and the movie is able to show the tragedy in Michael's life. I do find the movie gets too bogged down by the subplot involving a Vatican conspiracy. I understand what Coppola was trying to do there, but it just does nothing for me. And I guess I should bring up the most criticized part of the movie, Michael's daughter, Mary. In addition to a rather icky incest plot, Sofia Coppola's acting is not great. But I also recognize she was pulled into the role the very last minute, and she did later find her true calling as a director, so I'm not going to harp on it too much. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know in the comments whether you prefer the original Star Wars trilogy or the Godfather trilogy, and thank you for your question, Andrew.